my name is Carlos Marcelo. I am from Brazil. I am in Brazil. And now we are gonna talk about Venezuela. Now, January 5th, 2026. Maduro has gone to jail. But how did we get this far in this dictatorship in Venezuela? How did we reach a situation where democracy uh, got to this point of becoming an authoritarian dictatorship? It all starts with Hugo Chavez, who became president in 99 and started making a lot of enterprises who were private starting to be nationalized, being expropriated. And the national oil company PDVSA became even more heavily politically influenced. As you can see in the Department of State of the US website, in 2007, he started nationalizing a lot of strategic sectors, according to him. Strategic for him and his fellows, of course, including telecommunications and electricity. And there is the CANTV too, that was nationalized in 2007 when he bought it from Verizon. And then, of course, once the company belonged to the state, it was no more allowed to, let's say, denounce corruption, criticize the government, which is precisely what you can expect of a country that controls the economy. And the economy includes the media, newspapers. If the government controls everything, it includes the media. So once you have socialism, a planned economy, that's what you have. You have a dictatorship where you cannot criticize anything. You cannot have freedom of press without a private press. If everything is run by the state, that's what you get. And of course, other companies were nationalized too, like Sidor steel company, and there is also a cement company, shopping mall companies. Everything you can imagine in the economy was nationalized one by one. Banks too, like the Banco de Venezuela, the Banco Bicentenario. And here we have a photo from 2008. Hugo Chavez with his pal Medvedev from Russia on the left. And we also have Evo Morales from Bolivia, Daniel Ortega from Nicaragua. All of them revisionist regimes who are anti-American, anti-capitalism, and just a coincidence, all of them are authoritarian dictatorships. Bolivia fortunately changed course, but not without some pain. And now it's Venezuela that is having to pass from this pain too. And Russia is the next one, we hope. But you see, Venezuela was the first case in history of a communist politician successfully trying the Fabian socialism to have a planned economy. So far, the Soviet Union, China, Cuba, North Korea, all of them had revolutions or were occupied by other revolutionaries. Like North Korea became a communist regime under a socialist economy because of the Soviet and Chinese influence. But Venezuela is different. It didn't become socialist through a revolution. It did the Fabian socialism, which is a plan created by British communists that the idea was nationalizing the economy little by little, not through a revolution. Theoretically, it would be always democratic. It would be made gradually by laws, reforms, decrees, and there would be election, public persuasion, and the society would be educated towards socialism, but very in a very voluntary way, supposedly, and there would be a mix of public ownership with private uh, that would slowly become more public than private until we would reach the point of a total public economy. And public, we mean controlled by the state. The problem is, once you have a certain degree of the economy controlled by the state, you cannot have a democracy anymore. You can only nationalize so much until you get to the point of making your country become a dictatorship. So, democratic socialism is a contradictory expression. Either you have a democracy or you have socialism. Fabian socialism is like an intermediary phase. And in this phase, you can still have a democracy, but only to a certain point until you reach real socialism, and then you don't have a democracy anymore. And that is precisely what happened in Venezuela. And it is fair to say that by 2012, the last election that Chavez got reelected, we can pretty much say the situation was already pretty authoritarian when he disputed against Enrique Capriles. And if you look on the map, the situation, most of the electorate supposedly voted for Chavez on the state level and on the municipality level. But by then, we could already see the cracks. The bad economic situation was starting to appear. So it is very unlikely this result was legitimate. And then Chavez dies in a disease in 2013, and Maduro takes office right after. And due to urban violence, inflation, and chronic shortages of basic goods, by 2014, Maduro was already very unpopular back then. And then in 2017, the Venezuelan Supreme Court, that was full of judges that were appointed by Chavez or Maduro, they decided the Congress that had been elected and was mostly oppositional. This Congress was stripped from its powers by the Supreme Court. So we only had a democracy on paper. I mean, if you believe that a country is a democracy because it has elections, even North Korea is a democracy then. And Venezuela still had another legislative that was meant to make another constitution. And this constitutional congress, full of Chavistas, was the one that was supposed to legislate now, with the Supreme Court full of Chavistas too. So if we had to put a date on when exactly the self coup happened, it would be like 28 or 29 of March of 2017. But I would say that in the final years of Chavez's presidency, it was already an authoritarian country, to say the least. But since 2017, there is no doubt anymore. This country was a dictatorship. And it is appalling to see so many people who are supposedly neutral or even center right accusing Maduro of destroying democracy because of the fake elections of 2024. I mean, I've seen many people accuse Maduro of only becoming a dictator now with this fraudulent vote here that points out he was the winner when we all know Edmundo Gonzalez was the winner here. But then I see people complaining, oh, now and only now Chavez, no, Maduro became a dictator. I mean, what the hell? Only now you see what is happening in Venezuela? Didn't you pay attention to the 2017 coup the Chavistas did with the Supreme Court? Even under Chavez, we could already see what was happening. Don't you remember the RCTV closure? Hugo Chavez declared this TV station that was opposition to his presidency should be closed. And back then it was already an authoritarian regime. I mean, I'm pretty sure many people will try in the future say, oh, Chavez was like Lenin and Maduro was like Stalin, you know? Like, oh, Lenin and Chavez were good guys, and Maduro and Stalin, they uh, perverted their predecessors' ideals. What a BS. And then I see gringos talking about international law, and in Brazil, people like to talk about sovereignty. And in the US, it seems it's more like international law, but the idea is the same. The idea that no country should invade another if it wasn't attacked first, or if it doesn't have the UN approval, as if the UN had such a great morale to preach on how to treat the others. Like uh, their human rights secretaries, directorates are full of authoritarian regimes. They have Muslim countries on the directorates for women's rights, for God's sake. And you wanna talk about the UN giving approval? And back in first, I see people talk about, oh, it was up to the Venezuelan people to overthrow his regime. But here we have Oscar Perez, who made a guerrilla group in 2018, and he tried, he did his part, but unfortunately, the Maduro regime caught him and they took his life. But he will be forever a hero of Venezuela. And now I hope they make a statue of him. He deserves. And that was not the only case. There are many protests throughout the years like these that they tried doing whatever they could. Look at them, the way the regime behaved with protesters. The protesters they tried making like what Ukraine did in Euromaidan, but unfortunately the regime resisted with. And here we have even more fallen who tried overtaking their dictatorship. You don't need to like Trump to appreciate what the United States has done to Venezuela. It was not like, oh, unfortunately, it had to be done. No, he was a dictator. It's not like, oh, so you're saying the end justifies the means. No, there is absolutely nothing wrong with uh, taking from power this authoritarian dictator who was the leader of a narco-terrorist group, the Cartel de los Soles, the Cartel of the Suns. There is absolutely no comparison between Venezuela and Ukraine. For you guys saying, oh, it opens a precedent to Ukraine. Oh, by the way, Ukraine has been invaded for almost 4 years now, and they are still fighting. And they are doing very well against a country that has nuclear bombs. The second largest army on the planet can barely control 20% of Ukraine. And this country is a democracy, Ukraine. Zelensky was an outsider. He won over Petro Poroshenko in the election of 2019. Poroshenko, he had won 2014 elections. He tried re-election and lost to Zelensky, an outsider. What else do you want for Ukraine to show that it is a democracy? How much more power transition do you expect from Ukraine? Look at how many changes there was in Russia and Belarus since 99. In Belarus, it's always Lukashenko. In Russia, there was once Medvedev, but we all know he was just pretending to be in power. We all know Putin was uh, showing the cards all along. But Ukraine is on its sixth president since 91. It's absolutely bollocks to compare these two countries. Back in 2014, Maduro was already uh, getting protesters' lives away, like Genesis Carmona. She was 22 years old when her life was taken. She was there on a protest to show her discontent, and the regime took her life. I mean, back then it was already very clear how much of a dictator Maduro was. How dare you say it's the same situation between Venezuela and Ukraine? So, and now let's hope the same happens in Iran. If the Iranian people can't overthrow their regime, I hope they can. But just in case, it's good to have the Uncle Sam nearby. So that's it for now. So if you want to see more content like this, press like, subscribe, hype, and share with your friends about this video. And comment suggestions on what other themes you want to see me talk about.